You never think your wife will cheat on you. Sure, you hear stories, you know it happens to other guys, but you never think you'll be the one living that nightmare. Especially not like this. Not with another man, sure, that's one thing. But dragging my daughter into it? Into the same damn bed? And filming it on camera? That's a whole new level of hell. You gotta be wondering what the hell is wrong with me, right? Like, what kind of husband lets this happen? What kind of father? Trust me, I've asked myself that same question a million times. I must be a really shitty husband for things to have gotten this bad. But hey, let's start from the beginning. Because believe me, this didn't happen overnight. First things first, a bit about me. I'm not new to pain. Life hasn't exactly been a smooth ride. My first wife, God rest her soul, died of cancer more than 9 years ago. You know, they say time heals, but anyone who's lost someone like that knows it's bullshit. It doesn't heal, not really. You just learn to live with it, like a permanent scar. She was my everything. We had this beautiful life together, until cancer ripped it all apart. She fought like hell, went through all the treatments, surgeries, and chemo, but it wasn't enough. In the end, I lost her, and nothing could prepare me for that. When she died, she left me and our daughter behind. Our girl was only 16 at the time. Sweet 16, right? Except it was anything but. She was devastated, and so was I. It felt like the world collapsed in on us, like we were drowning in grief. I tried my best to be there for her, to hold it together for both of us. But let me tell you, raising a teenage daughter alone after losing the love of your life, that's no small task. Now, my daughter, she's 25, a grown woman. She's smart, independent, got her mom's strength in her, or at least I thought she did. She was my pride and joy, my reason to keep going when everything else fell apart. We've always been close. Well, we were close. She was my little girl, you know? No matter how old she got, I still saw that 16-year-old who needed her dad. She's beautiful too, just like her mom was. Had this big, open heart. At least that's what I believed before. Well, before it all went to hell. Anyway, fast forward a few years. About 2 years ago, I met someone new. I wasn't really looking for anyone. Hell, after what happened with my first wife, I wasn't sure I'd ever want to open up again. But life's funny like that. Just when you think you're done, it throws something or someone unexpected your way. And that someone was her. She was this vibrant, confident woman, full of life. You know how they say some people light up the room when they walk in? She had that. That energy, that spark, made me feel alive again for the first time in years. We hit it off pretty quickly. Our relationship, at first it was easy. No drama, no baggage. Well, that's what I thought anyway. I felt good around her. She made me feel human again, made me forget, even if just for a little while, all the shit life had thrown my way. After a while, things got more serious. We started dating, and I'll admit, I fell for her. Hard. It felt right, you know? Like maybe I'd finally found my second chance at happiness. About 6 months before everything blew up, we got married. I thought it was the start of something good, something real. Little did I know it was just the start of a slow-motion train wreck. She was beautiful, no doubt about that. The kind of beauty that turns heads when you walk into a room together. But it wasn't just her looks. She had this confidence, this way of carrying herself that made you feel like she was in control of everything. Maybe she was more than I realized. But there was something else about her, too. Something off, I guess you could say. She had her own tastes, her own interests, especially when it came to sex. Now, I'm no prude, don't get me wrong. But the things she was into, they were wild, way beyond anything I'd ever imagined. Gags, whips, you name it. At first, it was little things. Toys here and there, handcuffs, you know the drill. No big deal, right? But then she started suggesting things that made me uncomfortable. She wanted threesomes. Yeah, she came right out and said it one night like it was the most normal thing in the world. How about we bring someone else into the bedroom? Spice things up a little. I laughed it off, thought she was joking, but she wasn't. She was dead serious. And then there was the filming. She wanted to record us. Said it'd be hot. a fun little memory for later. But I wasn't into that. Call me old-fashioned, but that's not my style. Still, I didn't make a big deal about it. I just told her no, and she didn't push. That's the thing. She never pushed when I said no. She just accepted it with a smile, like it didn't matter, like it was no big deal. And we never fought about it. Not once. She'd bring up something crazy. I'd say no, and life would just go on. I figured it was harmless, just her being adventurous, pushing boundaries that I wasn't ready for. I thought we were okay, but looking back now, I should have paid more attention. I should have seen the signs. Because let me tell you, those little suggestions were just the tip of the iceberg. I had no idea how deep that shit ran. And if I'd been more alert, if I'd questioned it more, maybe things wouldn't have spiraled out of control the way they did. Maybe I could have stopped it before it got so ugly. But hindsight, as they say, is 20/20ths. At the time, I was just happy to have her. Happy to have found someone who made me feel alive again. I was blind, and because of that, I'm here now, telling you this story. Stay with me, because it only gets worse from here. You know, when your own daughter stops looking you in the eye, it's hard not to notice. There's this shift, a wall that wasn't there before. One day she's full of life, and the next she's hollow. That's what happened to my daughter. Almost overnight, she changed like someone had flipped a switch. She stopped smiling, stopped laughing. She moved through the house like a ghost. I tried talking to her, tried to figure out what was wrong, but she shut me out completely. I thought maybe it was school, maybe work stress. But deep down, I knew something worse was going on. I could feel it. She was broken, but I had no idea why. And no matter how hard I pushed, she wouldn't talk to me. I thought about giving her space, thinking maybe she'd come around on her own. But weeks passed, and nothing changed. Then, one night, she went to a party with some friends. It seemed like a good thing. She hadn't been out in weeks. I thought maybe it was a sign she was starting to feel better. I was wrong. I got a call late that night. She was drunk, crying, barely able to get the words out. "Dad, can you come pick me up?" she said, her voice shaky and fragile. I didn't hesitate. I grabbed my keys and drove over to the address she gave me. When I arrived, I saw her sitting on the curb, her face streaked with tears, makeup smeared, her shoulders shaking with sobs. I parked, rushed over to her, and crouched down beside her. Hey, it's okay. I'm here. Let's get you home," I said softly, trying to comfort her. I helped her into the car, buckled her in, and started driving, my mind racing with a million questions. What had happened to her? What had triggered this breakdown? We drove in silence for a while. Her sobs filled the car, and I didn't push. I figured she'd talk when she was ready. And sure enough, a few minutes later, she took a deep breath and spoke. "Dad, I need to tell you something," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Okay, sweetheart, whatever it is, you can tell me." She wiped her eyes, her hand trembling. "It's about her. About your wife." I felt a knot form in my stomach. I didn't say anything, just nodded for her to go on. "She's been cheating on you," she said, her voice breaking as fresh tears streamed down her face. At first, I tensed up, my whole body stiffened, bracing for the impact. But then something strange happened. I laughed. Yeah, I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because in that moment, it felt like the least surprising thing I could hear. I glanced over at her. "You're serious? Is that what this is all about?" I sighed and shook my head. "It doesn't even matter to me, honestly. If she wants to screw around, fine. I'll leave her, no problem. You're the only thing that matters, and I'll make sure you have a good life." I tried to sound reassuring, tried to brush it off. After all, am I supposed to break down over a woman I've only been married to for 6 months? Hell no. She can go to hell. But my daughter didn't calm down. She kept crying, and that's when I knew there was more to this. "Dad, there's something else," she said, her voice barely holding together. I felt the knot in my stomach tighten. "What is it?" She wiped her face again, her hands shaking. I wasn't feeling well that day. I took the day off work because I just needed to be alone. So, I went home early. And I asked, my voice tense now. I could feel it. The other shoe was about to drop. When I got home, she was there. Your wife. But she wasn't alone. I gripped the steering wheel harder, my knuckles turning white. What do you mean? There was another man with her. I saw them. They were having sex in your bedroom. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. I couldn't breathe for a moment, like the air had been sucked out of the car. But before I could respond, she continued, her voice cracking with every word. When they saw me, they stopped. They freaked out. She ran to me, tried to beg me not to say anything to you. She promised it was a mistake, that it wouldn't happen again. I clenched my teeth, my jaw tightening as the rage started to build inside me. But it wasn't over. They didn't just stop there, she said, her voice barely holding steady. They asked me to join them. I blinked, my mind struggling to process what she had just said. What? They offered me wine. I was so shocked. I didn't know what to do. I drank it, Dad. And then I joined them. My hands were shaking now, my entire body trembling with rage. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This wasn't real. This was some sick, twisted nightmare that I couldn't wake up from. My own daughter dragged into this mess by the woman I had trusted, by the woman I had married. They filmed it, she continued, her voice barely audible now. They filmed everything. And now I'm scared it's going to end up online. That was it. That was the breaking point. My world shattered in that moment. The anger, the betrayal, the disbelief, it all came crashing down on me at once. I felt like I was drowning in it, suffocating under the weight of what she had just told me. I couldn't think straight. I couldn't breathe. All I could feel was the rage boiling inside me, ready to explode. When I got home that night, I was a man possessed. The rage, the betrayal, it was like fire burning through my veins. I could barely see straight as I stormed into the house, slamming the door behind me. There she was, lying in bed like nothing had happened, like she hadn't just torn my world apart, like everything was fine. I didn't care about being calm. I didn't care about keeping my head, not after what I had just learned. I grabbed the covers and yanked them off her, throwing them onto the floor with such force that she bolted upright. Get the hell out of bed, I shouted, my voice louder than I had ever heard it. She looked at me, eyes wide, confused, maybe scared. What are you doing? She asked, her voice trembling. I wasn't interested in her excuses, her pathetic attempts to lie her way out of this. Where's the tape? I demanded, taking a step toward her. My whole body was shaking with anger. Where's the fucking tape? Her face paled, and I could see the fear creeping into her eyes now. She knew exactly what I was talking about. She sat there, clutching the sheets as if they would protect her. I didn't mean for it to happen, she started, her voice cracking. You're just so closed off all the time. Oh, so this is my fault now? I barked, cutting her off, not even bothering to hide the venom in my voice. You dragged my daughter into this sick shit, and you want to blame me? My hands were balled into fists, my knuckles white as I tried to keep myself from losing it completely. I took another step toward her, grabbing her by the shoulders, my grip tight enough to make her wince. Where is it? I growled, my voice low and threatening. Where's the tape? She started to cry, her voice trembling with fear. I didn't want to hurt you, she whimpered, her tears falling now. I'm sorry, it got out of control. I shook her once, hard enough to make her snap out of it. Who has it? I demanded, ignoring her pathetic apology. Where is it? She hesitated for a moment, glancing away, but I could tell she knew she didn't have any options left. She wasn't going to get out of this. My friend, she whispered, barely able to meet my gaze. He has it. I let go of her, disgusted. I didn't want to touch her anymore. Not after what she'd done. Give me his address. She wiped her tears with the back of her hand, sniffling like some wounded animal. She told me where he lived, a few blocks away. I didn't say another word. I didn't need to. I stormed out of the house, slamming the door behind me so hard that the frame rattled. I didn't care if she stayed or packed up and left. I wasn't coming back until I had what I needed. The drive to his place felt like a blur. My mind was racing, my pulse pounding in my ears. I didn't have a plan. I didn't care. All I knew was that I wasn't leaving without that tape. It was late, past midnight, when I pulled up to his house. The lights were off, and the neighborhood was quiet, save for the sound of crickets in the night air. I got out of the car and walked up to his front door, my heart hammering in my chest. I didn't knock gently. I pounded on that door like I was going to break it down. No answer. I banged again, harder this time. I could hear movement inside, the sound of someone stirring. Finally, I heard his voice, groggy and confused from the other side of the door. "Who is it?" he called out, clearly still half asleep. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my voice. "Hey, sorry to bother you so late," I said, forcing myself to sound calm. "I think I damaged your fence, and I wanted to compensate you for it. Can you come take a look?" There was a long pause. He was suspicious, I could tell, but not enough to keep him from opening the door. I heard the lock click, and the door creaked open just a few inches. Before he could say anything, before he could even register what was happening, my fist slammed into his face. The impact was satisfying. The crack of his nose breaking beneath my knuckles sent a jolt of adrenaline through me. He stumbled backward, clutching his face, blood pouring from his nose. But I didn't stop. I stepped through the doorway and hit him again and again. He fell to the floor, groaning in pain, trying to shield himself from the blows. "You know why I'm here?" I spat, grabbing him by the collar of his shirt and dragging him further into the house. "Where's the recording?" He whimpered, trying to speak through the blood and the swelling in his face. I don't know what you're talking about," he mumbled, but the panic in his eyes told me otherwise. I wasn't in the mood for games. I kicked him hard in the ribs, and he gasped, curling into a ball on the floor. "Don't play dumb with me," I snarled, leaning down so my face was inches from his. "You made it in my house. Now tell me where it is." He groaned, his body trembling with fear. He knew he had no choice. With a shaky hand, he pointed toward a nightstand by the bed. "It's in there," he choked out. "There's a flash drive." I walked over, yanked open the drawer, and sure enough, there was a small black USB drive just sitting there like it was nothing. I picked it up, turning back to him. "How many copies?" I demanded. "One," he gasped, clutching his side where I'd kicked him. "That's the only one. I swear." I stood over him for a moment, considering whether I should hit him again, make him feel a little more pain for what he had done. But he wasn't worth it. He was just a spineless coward. I turned and left, shoving the flash drive into my pocket. I didn't bother looking back. When I reached the street, I spotted a large stone lying on the side of the road. Without thinking, I picked it up and hurled it through his front window. The sound of glass shattering was the perfect punctuation to the night, a small act of vengeance that didn't come close to the damage he deserved. As I walked away, the reality of the situation hit me. I knew I couldn't take them to court. Legally, my daughter was an adult, and she'd agreed to whatever that sick act was. But I didn't need a lawyer to get my revenge. There were other ways to make them pay. When I got home, the house was eerily quiet. Too quiet. I walked through the living room, then up to the bedroom. Her side of the closet was empty. Her toiletries were gone. She'd packed up just enough to leave in a hurry. Good. Let her run. The next morning, I woke up with a single purpose: divorce. It was time to end this nightmare, to cut her out of my life like the cancer she had become. After everything that had happened, there was no going back. I wanted her gone, and I wanted it to happen as fast as possible. But as much as I wanted to call my lawyer right away and get the process started, there was something I needed to take care of first. A small piece of revenge. Something that had been burning inside me since the moment my daughter told me what had happened. I sat down at the kitchen table, opened my laptop, and plugged in the flash drive. Just holding that thing made me feel sick. My mind kept flashing back to the night before, to the sheer disgust I had felt knowing what was on it. But I had to see it for myself, no matter how much it made my stomach turn. I needed to know exactly what I was dealing with before I did anything else. I took a deep breath and clicked on the file. The video started playing, and immediately I wished I hadn't opened it. There they were, my wife and that bastard, in my house, in my bed, doing things that made me want to vomit. It was disgusting, revolting, but I forced myself to watch. I needed to see it. I needed to understand the depths of her betrayal. But then it got worse. Much worse. My daughter appeared on the screen, looking lost, confused, and broken. It was like a punch to the gut, seeing her in that state, knowing what she had been dragged into. I could barely watch. The thought of her being part of that twisted scene made my blood boil. I gripped the edges of the laptop, my hands shaking with rage. I wanted to turn it off. I wanted to throw the laptop across the room and pretend this wasn't real, that this wasn't happening. But I couldn't. I had to fix this. I had to protect my daughter from the fallout of all this madness. I opened up a video editor and got to work. The first thing I did was cut out every single moment that involved my daughter. Every frame of her was removed, deleted, wiped away like it had never happened. No one was ever going to see her in that light. No one was going to know that she had been part of this. Not if I could help it. But after that, I wasn't finished. Not by a long shot. I wasn't just going to erase my daughter's involvement. I was going to make sure my wife paid for what she had done. She had exposed my family, torn apart everything I had built. Now it was her turn. I added links to all her social media accounts, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, every platform she had. I wanted the world to know exactly who she was. I wanted people to see the real her, the woman behind the perfect little posts about her wonderful life. I wanted them to see what she had done, who she really was when the mask came off. It took me a few hours to get it all right. I made sure the video was clean, the cuts seamless, and I polished it up so that it was short enough to spread quickly. I knew how these things worked. People love scandal, and once this hit the internet, it would spread like wildfire. She was about to lose everything, just like I had. When I was done, I sat back in my chair, staring at the screen. My heart was pounding in my chest, a mix of adrenaline and hatred coursing through my veins. This was it. This was the moment I took control of the situation. I started uploading the video to every site that would allow it. Porn sites, revenge porn forums, anywhere that would let me post it. I didn't care about the legalities. I didn't care about the consequences. I wanted her to feel exposed, humiliated, and destroyed. As I watched the progress bar slowly inch toward completion, I felt a strange sense of satisfaction. This was justice. This was what she deserved. Only after it was done, only after the video was out there in the world for everyone to see, did I pick up the phone and call my lawyer. "I'm ready to file for divorce," I said, my voice steady but cold. "I want her out of my life as soon as possible." My lawyer and I talked for a while, going over the details. I told him everything, what had happened, what my plans were. He was calm and professional, but I could sense the shock in his voice. We discussed the division of property, which, fortunately, wasn't going to be a problem. We didn't have much to argue over. No kids, no shared assets that I cared about. I just wanted her gone. We scheduled a meeting to finalize the paperwork. The next few days were strange. I had expected to feel relief after starting the divorce process, but there was still a heaviness that weighed on me. My daughter, she wasn't doing well. I could see it in her eyes, in the way she carried herself. She was haunted by what had happened, and I knew that this was something far bigger than I could handle alone. I sat her down one morning, the day after I had uploaded the video, and told her that we were going to see a psychologist. At first, she resisted. She didn't want to talk to anyone, didn't want to open up about what she had been through. But I told her that this wasn't something either of us could handle on our own. I told her that she needed help, real help, from someone who understood trauma, someone who could guide her through the pain. She agreed, but I could see the fear in her eyes. She didn't want to relive any of it. But what? That day, I took her to a psychologist I had found through a recommendation. We sat in the waiting room together, not saying much. She was nervous, her hands trembling as she fidgeted with the hem of her shirt. I didn't know what to say to comfort her, because deep down, I knew I wasn't in a place to help her either. I was just as broken. As she went in for her session, I sat there alone with my thoughts. The truth is, I probably need help too. I mean, how could I not? But the thought of sitting in that room, talking to a stranger about everything that had happened, about all the anger, the guilt, the betrayal, I couldn't do it. I wasn't ready. Not yet. Maybe not ever. When she came out, we didn't talk about what had happened in the session. I didn't push her. I knew it would take time, and I was willing to give her that. As long as she was getting help, as long as she wasn't alone in this, I could manage. I could hold it together for her. As for me, I don't know. Maybe one day I'll have to face my own demons. But for now, I'll keep them buried, just like I always have. I'll write an update later, once everything is settled. For now, I just want to say thanks for reading, for listening to my story. I don't know where this road is going to lead, but I'm ready for whatever comes next. Take care of yourselves out there. Hold on to what matters, and don't let anyone take it away from you. You're stronger than you think. Until next time, update. So it's been a while since I shared my story. I figured it was time to give you all an update on how things have been going. Spoiler, it's much better now. But let me start from the beginning, where I left off. First off, the divorce. Honestly, it went a lot faster than I expected. There was no real fight, no drawn-out court battle. We didn't have any property together. Thank God for that. So there wasn't anything to divide. No house, no joint bank accounts. It was just paperwork and signatures. It was over before I even had time to process it all. She didn't contest anything. She just wanted out, probably as much as I did. After what I had done with the video, I think she realized there was no point in dragging things out. She knew her reputation was in shambles, and there was no fixing that. So, the divorce was quick, clean, and I walked away free. I can't even describe the relief I felt when it was finalized. It was like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. I was done with her, with that life. It was all behind me. Now, about my daughter. That's the part one care about the most. After everything she went through, I knew I had to be there for her in a way I hadn't been before. The psychologist helped. It wasn't easy for her at first. Hell, it wasn't easy for me either, but it worked. She's been seeing the psychologist regularly, and I've noticed a change. She's stronger now, more like the girl I remember before all this crap happened. We've been doing things together, trying to rebuild what was broken. We went on a vacation to the mountains a few months ago, just the two of us. We hiked, sat by the campfire at night, and for the first time in a long time, I saw her laugh. A real laugh, not the forced smile she had been giving me before. It was like a piece of her had come back. It was a simple trip, but it meant the world to both of us. After that, we took another trip to the sea. She loves the ocean, always has. We spent a week just relaxing on the beach, talking about everything and nothing. It felt like we were healing, both of us. The sea has a way of washing things away, you know? The memories, the pain. We left a lot of that behind in the sand, letting the waves carry it away. Things aren't perfect, but they're a hell of a lot better now. She's moving forward, and so am I. As for me, well, let's just say I've been keeping myself busy. I've had a few affairs since the divorce. I wasn't really looking for anything serious, just needed to feel alive again. I didn't jump into another relationship. I wasn't ready for that, but I needed to remind myself that I could still enjoy life, that I wasn't broken beyond repair. Some of the women I've been with, they've been good to me. Others not so much, but that's life, isn't it? You take the good with the bad and move on. No regrets. Now about her, my ex-wife. You're probably wondering what happened to her after everything blew up. Well, through some friends, I found out that the bad news about her spread faster than I ever could have imagined. The video did its job. People saw her for what she really was, and it didn't take long for the consequences to catch up with her. She lost her job pretty quickly after that. No surprise there. I mean, how could she expect to keep working when her face was plastered all over the internet? She tried to play it off, tried to act like it didn't bother her. But from what I've heard, she's been struggling. Her relatives? They've stopped talking to her. Completely cut her off. Apparently, they don't want to be associated with the scandal. It's funny how fast people turn their backs on you when you become an embarrassment. I'm not going to lie. It feels good to know that she's paying for what she did. I won't pretend to be a saint. The revenge was satisfying. Seeing her lose everything, watching her world crumble just like mine had. Yeah, it felt right. She deserved every bit of it. But I'm not dwelling on it anymore. That chapter of my life is closed. I've moved on, and so has my daughter. We're rebuilding one day at a time, and honestly, things are looking up. We're stronger now, and we're not looking back. So I guess that's where I leave things for now. I don't know what the future holds, but I'm not scared of it anymore. I've learned a lot from all of this, about myself, about people, about how easily things can fall apart. But I've also learned that you can rebuild. No matter how bad things get, there's always a way to come back from it. It just takes time and a hell of a lot of patience. I want to thank all of you for sticking with me, for reading, for supporting me through this mess. It's meant more than you know. Sharing my story, putting it out there, it helped me heal in ways I didn't expect. If I could leave you with one piece of advice, it's this: don't let anyone else define your worth. Not a spouse, not a partner, not anyone. You are stronger than you realize, and when life knocks you down, you get back up. It's not easy, but it's worth it. Take care of the people who matter, and don't waste your time on those who don't. I'll say goodbye for now. Maybe I'll update again in the future, maybe not. But wherever life takes me next, I'm ready for it. Good luck to all of you out there. Thanks for everything.